Hey, how's it going, everybody? Got a bit of a cutoff there, at least on our end. Welcome to the show. In today's show, I was just looking at that thumbnail and laughing. I forgot I made that thumbnail. The Who's Laughing Now, because we're talking all about Google today. Are they quietly becoming an AI superpower? Were they always? Did they just keep stepping on their own toes last year and the year before, and things have changed now? This is our show to just dive deep into Google, Gemini, but not just Gemini, like literally all the other things Google is doing. Some of these like really behind the scenes. Some of these things are in their labs. Some of these will never really truly see the light of day in terms of like getting mass adoption. Some will just quietly fail and go away. But the thing about Google that we want you to know as we go through the show today, we'll show you tons of examples, is that they are in the labs. They are doing the work, and you're starting to see a lot of this start to bubble up. We'll definitely be talking about Gemini 2.5 today and the different modes of that model and what it can do. We'll even show you a little bit of VideoFX if you haven't seen that before. So lots to cover today on the show. We've been looking and talking about doing the show for quite some time. It's perfect for an Aloha Friday. Me and Jumi have got the Hawaiian shirts on today. And this is the Daily AI Show. Today is April 11th, 2025. Thanks. Welcome to the show. We do this live every single weekday at 10 a.m. Eastern. So come join us. Be part of the conversation. Tell us what you love about Google. You can do that by going over to our YouTube channel and just joining the live conversation over there. We've already got 12 comments in there already. So come hang out with us. Also, sort of new this week, or is new this week, come join our new community. So we have heard back from everybody and said, like, we want to keep the conversation going, even when you guys aren't live. And we said, okay. And so we have created a Daily AI Show community hub. It's on Slack, and you can get to log in and join that by simply going to, is that cutting out for everybody?
Yeah, video disappeared.
Right? It is disappearing, right? Not just me. Sorry, guys. It was like going black, and I was trying to figure out why. You're on mute, Beth. You can go to dailyaishowcommunity.com in order to join that Slack community. So that's a real simple way of doing that. Okay, so with me today, I already talked about Jumi being here in the Hawaiian shirt, but we also have Beth and Andy, and hopefully we've got the Friday bugs out of the system now, and everything is going to play nice for the rest of this show. So yeah, and let's bring in Carl here. Nope, not yet. Carl says no. Carl says no. So I'm going to go ahead and throw it over to you, Beth, because one of the first things I'm sure people really want to talk about, and now he's here. Carl has joined the show. It's Friday. Um, Beth, one of the things I know that you have been pretty hands-on with, as a lot of these different like Gemini models, as they've sort of moved up the ranks from one and all the other releases in there. And if you go into AI Studio, which I'm sure you'll talk about, there's many models to drop down, kind of like GPT does too, where you might have 4.0 and 4.0 preview and minis and other things that have dates on them. There's sort of a different bunch of them. But I would love to hear from you, because you've been sort of the one that's been showing me sort of like where we think this sort of differentiated potential is of like 2.5 that perhaps we weren't seeing before from Gemini. So like, I'd love to just start with you. Like, what's your sort of initial thoughts and experience with it?
So I think 2.5 starts to give us a little bit more of a comprehensive feel for what Google multimodal AI can do. But if you really want that, you still have to go through AI Studio. I am still getting refused from 2.5 when I do things in the Google Advanced subscription that we have with our Google One plan that stores all our show stuff, because it's pretty big. So we get the free Advanced as part of that. For example, yesterday it refused to translate for me, Jumi's, opening. No, it was, Wednesday's opening, right? Jumi said, "Aloha keikos?" Is that what you said?
Aloha kako.
Kako. And I said, "This is, this is spelled wrong, and it's Hawaiian. What should it be?" And it said, "I'm sorry, I'm a language model. I couldn't possibly help you with that." I was like,
Yeah.
actually, that doesn't make sense. That, like,
Yeah.
Actually, I have ears. I couldn't possibly hear you. I
Mm,
oh, come on. Like, and sorry, that's ableist, but you know what I mean. Um, so there's those things. But if you go through AI Studio, I find that it's a much purer experience, and you can do a ton with this. Write code is helpful. It's a little bit of a better writer. It's a little bit of a better processor. So I'll stop there, but, I'm delighted to talk about what's happening in AI Studio.
Yeah, so, on AI Studio, one of the niceties of AI Studio is it's simple to get there, aistudio.google.com, and it's beautifully integrated with your Google app spaces, right? So Drive is available in there if you want to add an attachment,
mhm,
or upload documents or images or whatever you have in your Drive, and when you work in OpenAI or ChatGPT, you get a library or Claude, you have a library of all of your chats. But if you use these things frequently, that library, it's not really searchable effectively. And you have to kind of scroll and scroll and scroll and say, where was that conversation? Well, Google puts every one of your conversations with chat, or not with all your chat conversations with 2.5 Pro or any of their other models, it puts it right in your drive. Very nice. So,
mm,
one of the things that Google's always had as an advantage is that they kind of own, at least in my world, they own this management space for all the things that I do on my system.
mhm,
And and I'm not giving up Google ever because of that. It's my documentary file system of record, right? So now they're integrating AI in a beautiful way, and I have just had very positive experiences with that in the past 24 hours. There's a lot of news that we're going to talk about on the show today because all of this is coming out of the Cloud Next 25 conference that is happening still today and has been going on for the past 2 days. And there's a flurry of announcements that, will reinforce your interest in pursuing AI Studio as a new possible, centerpiece of your AI experimentation.
So, that's actually really great. Since we were talking about Studio and Cisco actually made the comment, I just want to pull this in. YouTube videos never work, and it gives me a summary that is disconnected from the reality of what the video was about. I don't know if they are talking about um, inside, Google's, AI Studio or not, but what we have found is that since you can add multi pieces, you can add the time coded transcript plus the
mhm.
YouTube video, and that is pretty darn good, right? Like, you don't need to it may be that it still needs a little bit of help, but none of the other services can do this with a YouTube video.
Yeah, and
So
this is a good example. I just happen to have this pulled up, so since you were talking about it, I thought I'd throw it on the screen. This Cisco, in this particular case, I'm literally just giving it the URL and not even the transcript, just the URL, but it's pulling in that. This is one of our more recent shows. Can you tell me where the host discussed the idea of multimodal RAG and how it related to the overall conversation? That second part is what I think is important. This is when you're like sort of stress testing AI. The first part, I would expect most models to do a decent idea of if they had the transcript, but I'm asking for more than that. Like, I want the relationship, right? And what I really felt like it did a pretty good job of, it took about 2 minutes, honestly, to run, but that's okay. And then you say, okay, let's pinpoint the discussion around multimodal data, RAG, and how it connects to the quote token factory idea. And so now what you're getting is the initial mentioning of it around 329. Then there was some technical elaboration by Andy at 408. There's some bolded quotes that are in here directly from Andy. On this one, we're connecting multimodal RAG and dark data together. And I was talking about that at 523. At 621, we reinforced it in summary. Now, I will say, shouldn't there be a lot more after 6 minutes? We nearly go 50 to 55 to an hour. So it doesn't seem that it worked all the way through the transcript. I'd be the first to admit that. But this is encouraging to me because this really is doing a good job of making it really easy for me to just run through a summary here and just find some of these different, timestamps that would be relevant to the information from this particular video. But like I said, there's like, it's a much longer video. And although it doesn't explicitly say it's stopped, it kind of has that feeling of, um, I didn't keep going through the
Right.
whole video.
And I would say that is that is something that Google LLMs do, right? They're really good at the beginning. They want to please you, and then they get to a place, they don't tell you, right? It's just something that you need to assume, um, that if it's using a ton of resources, it's like, I mean, this is good enough, right? Like, I
Yeah.
said a lot of stuff. You talked about that. Like, these things are true. I don't think I have to go further.
Right.
You can prompt against that, but just something to know when we're talking about all the amazing things that Google does. This has been a consistent thing across the board with all the iterations of new models.
ChatGPT does a similar thing where it goes, and then I would keep doing that dot dot dot.
Right.
That's not thank you, I guess. Like, it's like, here's 3 examples, then I'd keep doing that. I'm like, could you? Could you keep doing that? Because that's kind of the answer I need, you know? But I just
That's
like, I love the way it's talking about like, and it's the Seinfeld yada yada, yada yada.
that's an inferred thing that 2.5 did to me yesterday, I think, because I said, "Go ahead, look at these, stop, and wait for permission to continue." And it said, "I looked at these. This is what I found. Inferred permission to continue. Here you go. Now I'm continuing." I was like, "In what world?
Yeah.
Oh,
Inferred.
you meant really?"
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
That's like, if you're doing the EMT stuff, you have to go with, like, implied consent. That's what that makes me think of, like, well, if they're passed out, you have implied consent to start life-saving measures. It's like, they can't tell you otherwise. So, I like the idea of Gemini pausing for a second to be like, "Nope, she said nothing. Keep rolling," you know? Aim to please. Okay, so one of the things I can show Breck on the screen here because we were just talking about it. If you're not really familiar with AI Studios, Andy was talking about, here's just a general layover. Like he was saying, you have your history over here. You can save directly to Google Drive. You have your chat, your stream, your starter app. So basically, here's your history that you'd be familiar with. Over here, you can drop down and pick different models, and they've cleaned this up recently. And I love that they've now labeled this one as hot for the image generation, which I think is pretty cool because they're like, they're kind of egging you on to go to new and hot and check those out. But you can also tell here like how much they cost. Because if I highlight it over this one, this doesn't cost anything to run right now. They're basically saying, please come in here and use this on our dime. We would love for you and us to get all the training data and stuff like that. Know that, that's why they're doing it. But hey, go take advantage of that. If you need some simple image generation, you can quite literally do that right now for free, paying nobody, as long as you just sign in with your Google account and you will get this for free. The Gemini Flash, and then we have the Gemini Pro Preview 325. That's the date on it, so it's only about 2 weeks old, that give or take on there. And its knowledge cutoff. Whoop, there we go. Its knowledge cutoff is January of 2025. So it's got a very recent training data. Of course, it's got the internet, but it's actually trained up through January 2025, which in terms of language models is actually very, very recent, I would say, for that. So that's where you pick on those things. You also have the ability, like this is where you would add in the URLs like I did on mine. I also love that you could play with temperature. We don't talk about that a ton, but I highly recommend it. Temperature is a great way to change the creative output of the prompt that you're getting. There's sometimes where you really just don't, like, you've inputted data and you're really looking for straight summarization of that data. Think like educational stuff or research where you're not really asking the model to be creative. You're asking it to summarize, to truncate, to whatever, itemize something, whatever the case is. You're not really asking it to add more to the conversation. In that case, you would want to bring your temperature almost down to like 0, but there's probably a fine line there where you would have to be careful. But by sliding it down that way, you're basically telling the model, hey, when you answer me, be less creative. And then if you go higher than 1, then you're doing the opposite of that. And so if you keep pushing that, you will find at some point it will start normal. It'll start to turn to gibberish. And because it's a predictive engine, once it turns to gibberish, it goes full gibberish, and it will just give you the craziest types of answers on that. And sometimes that could be fun too, to see like how close can you get to sort of wild creative answers before it turns to that sort of, silliness and gibberish that doesn't really make sense anymore. So definitely play with temperature. This is inside of OpenAI's platform and playground, but just good to know that it's also here in the AI Studio for Gemini.
Right. And one of the things to know, if you're going to the AI Studio to do image generation and you're starting with a photo that is actually what you want, like your face or something like that, it will, you want temperature way down, right?
Okay.
So it's not going to invent details on your face. Now, it's also not going to make you a really pretty headshot, right? It's not gonna style it as much as it might, but if you're finding that it's not recognizing you, I see you ladies who are sort of my age, maybe, maybe go lower in the temperature and see if you can get it to duplicate your face first.
So I just threw in, let's just see here, Beth. I just threw in, this was me using, we talked about this on a previous show where I did the ad campaign and they're drinking. I think we changed it to Fit Aid. I think it's still Fit Aid in that picture. I can't tell. Maybe. Wouldn't be Celsius. I know that. It would only be Fit Aid. But it'd be for Andy. But give me just an idea really quick, Beth, because I didn't really know that. So like I have it down at point 0.3. Do you think that's low enough for this?
I think it's low enough. I also think it's going to do better at it, in the first generation, right?
So
So
can we
if
say
you
something
continue
like,
to revise something like with 2 or 3, you'll find that the face and the original image, starts to degrade. It's very much like Xeroxing a Xerox. And yes, I know so Greg called me out for that last time. Sorry, copying a copy.
all right. So I just asked if we could replace the environment with the North Pole, which I would imagine should try to at least adhere to her same person, right? Yep, we did. I would say we made some stark changes to her in this particular case. Or just wait for some sort of fit aid.
And this is where Google says, "It's experimental."
I love that. I mean, to be fair, I didn't say put her in the North Pole. I could have been better. My prompting is lacking in this particular case. But anyway, thought I'd give it a shot, but I don't think that's exactly what we're looking for on there. Not a bad polar bear though. I'll give it that. It's a pretty good looking polar bear. I would believe that was probably a real picture for the most part. I don't see extra nails or anything. Extra polar bear fingers.
Chat wants to know if she got eaten. Perhaps she's still in the photo.
Perhaps, yes. Perhaps she is still there. It's very meta. And Gemini has kept her there. Just now the polar bear has eaten her. Because let's be honest, she's froze to death. She's not dressed appropriately for the North Pole. And what was the polar bear going to do? He's only doing what, or she's only doing what its natural instincts are. Okay. All right, so that we talked a little bit about Gemini, but let's expand a little bit because that's just one of Google's models. That's certainly not the only thing Google has going on. So I thought if you guys were cool with it, I'd love to just kind of like flip through some other things Google has going on. A lot of these things, by the way, anybody can go and use. Sometimes you have to sign up for a wait list, and that depends. Some people get it right away, some don't. It seems to be random a lot of times. But other things are just in their experimental lab, and you can play around with them today. We actually covered some of these, and they're still around from, I don't know, a year ago or 9 months ago, whenever we did our last sort of Google show. But I want to show a few of these on here. So I'll bring this back up on my screen real quick. And then let's just kind of like look through these. So this is Google Labs. And right here, if you go to labs.google.com and /experiments, I know you can't see that on the screen, but this is where it'll take you. And you have some sub tabs here. And these are all the different things. Some of these you can play with right now. I actually think this Career Dreamer one, which I think I have up right here. So right before this card and this Career Dreamer is like, hey, what do you do? And I'm like, all right, I'm an AI strategist. And then it's like, all right, what are some of your skills? And I could have added education and interest. You know what I actually think this did a pretty good job of, though? If people are struggling on LinkedIn to do their about section on their profile page, this pretty much wrote one for you. That's not horrible. I mean, I think you could make some updates to it. Not its intent. When I read it, I was like, hey, You could throw that on. You could throw that on your LinkedIn profile page and probably be okay. But if I go past this and I haven't, I said generative AI, and we say explore paths. I think this is something I'm actually going to do with my daughter, who's 14. She's just started her first job. I'm very proud of her. She literally is on somebody else's payroll other than mom and dad's for the first time. And so that's a big step for her. And she quite literally has a job now that she pays taxes on and things like that. So one of the things I'm a big fan of as I think about the future of education, which is beyond the scope of this show, but just in general, is I've been watching and following somebody on TikTok, and they just keep talking about how children in general, and probably adults, if we're honest, literally just don't know the sheer scope of jobs that are available to them. They know doctor and firefighter and dentist and the things that just come up a lot. But if you then went to some teenager and said, "I think you would make a really good, let's pull one in here." Marketing specialist. Would a 14-year-old really know what a marketing specialist is, even if they were a really good fit for it? So I kind of like this idea that we can just click on these different things that, my daughter can kind of put in her interests. And then let's say that she's like, well, I don't really know what a data scientist does. And so you can click on data scientist here. And then it's pulling in all this kind of like fun stuff. And I have not played around with this, but wow, what a great, cool, free tool you could literally use with your teenagers right now. If you have a kid who's a couple of years out from college or even in college and thinking about what they might want to do, here's a fun tool that somebody could use just to try to help out. And if you're trying to make a career change, perhaps this is something you can do to explore other ideas. So that's a fun one. This one for YouTube Premium now says that you can
Get early access to AI features on YouTube. Check out our new conversational AI tool. Dive deeper into the content you love with AI-powered answers without leaving the YouTube app. To use the tool, tap the Ask button under the video player. Next, pick one of the available prompts or pose a question of your own.
So this is sort of like if you have YouTube Premium, which I don't, but if you do, this is basically putting the power of Gemini on top of YouTube video so you can follow up the conversation. Like, so you could see this person chopping, and not only could you say, what are the ingredients, which is what they do here, but then you could say, like, how would I even put this together? How would I put this meal together? And you're using sort of the power of Gemini on top of it. Then you have this kind of cool one. Don't know if you guys knew this existed, but you can use this if you have a Google Workspace, so it's more on the work side, where it'll essentially put together slide decks for you that already do not only the script for it, they do a generated AI voice for you. Also, totally free. You can do this right now. I have a lot of people who say to me, Brian, do you know of any good AI slideshow makers? And so I've said, well, there's Beautiful and there's this and that. Here's one you can use for free without having to sign up for anything extra. And if we just click through, we'll just play a little bit here.
Models, multimodal capabilities, and how to switch between different models in Google's AI Studio. Let's get started with an introduction to Gemini. Gemini is a powerful AI.
Okay, so I'm going to stop it there. What you can see is it's creating the script. It created a voice for me, or it's giving me an option to record myself. And what you can do is obviously these images would probably need to be different. But look right here, like I can literally put myself in on this slide explaining something. So imagine how good that would be for both internal teams of, oh, I need to show my coworkers how to do this thing that I do or how to use Gemini. And I could have this slide deck with set some of the script to it that gets me far enough along, then I could pop in with some videos along the way, send them the slide deck, and it's like a little bit of interactive, a little bit on their own. And then all of a sudden they go to the next slide and it's me. And I'm like, hey, this is what we're talking about. This is where you would find this in AI Studio. I think this is super cool. It would take a little time to customize, but it's free for people to do. So that one's cool. This is Illuminate. So Illuminate is sort of like Notebook LM. It has some of the same types of features. The idea here is that you would give it some sort of research paper. It does focus in science right now. It makes a point of saying that. But if we go to this, it basically is the same idea.
This conversation is powered by Google Illuminate. Check out illuminate.google.com for more.
So AI thinking before it speaks, sounds like a philosophical riddle, doesn't it?
So basically, it sounds like Notebook LM. all I did was give it the URL like you would in Notebook LM or you would in Gemini AI Studio, and it created this summary of one of our shows straight from YouTube. Now, I don't think it was reading the captions and transcript. I think it was taking all of it from our detailed summary, if I had to guess. But also still pretty cool. 5 minutes, pretty short. You can pick up the speed on it if you wanted to. And so if there's a YouTube video where you're just trying to get the highlights, you could throw it into Illuminate and just get the quick clips of it. You could also do that in AI Studio technically by giving it the URL, but this is pretty cool. And if you drop out of this, you can see actually like the different things in the library. You can go to explore and see all the different things like chain of thought, different things you can listen to give you some ideas on that. Totally free. And then let me do this one and I'll pause because I feel like otherwise I'll talk for the rest of the show here. This one's interesting. This is Project Mariner. Project Mariner is like uh what's it called? What's that OpenAI uses to do the go around the web? What's the
Operator.
operator? Thank you. The Pro Tool. So similar but different, but this goes to what you were saying, Andy, about like Google sort of already has the infrastructure as opposed to OpenAI would have to build it. Google has Chrome, right? So if they're building stuff and they're integrating Gemini with Chrome, with YouTube, with Google Drive, with Gmail to like this is easier for them to do across all their different pieces and parts. And so Mariner is the idea that, and you had to sign up for this. I don't have it, but the idea is that here, I think we do learn more, maybe. Well, I saw it. I don't remember where I saw it on this. Oh, I guess I was scrolled down. But basically, the idea is that you can have it do tasks on your behalf across multiple web pages. And I'm assuming in Chrome, but that's the idea of it. It's sort of an operator like feature. And so they call it Project Mariner. You have to sign up for the wait list. If I get it, we'll maybe do a show if it's really cool. But so this is sort of Google's sort of like next step towards that. And I have a few more that are on here as well, but let me just stop there because I know there's other things to share. I don't want to take up all the time, but I think that my point to this is like, it's not just Gemini, but it is sort of Gemini interwoven through all these different areas from building slide decks with Google has had slides forever or doing things with audio or video. Google tells you straight up that all their video processing comes directly from their ability to understand semantic reasoning from YouTube videos. Like they say it on their thing. Like we train on YouTube over millions and millions of YouTube videos and we follow all the rules and all that stuff. You know, of who can, you know, whatever you're agreeing to when you make YouTube content, we're probably telling YouTube it's fine to use our content every single day. And it's training on that and using it in order to do some of these other things. So I don't know. Did you guys know about all those? Have you seen all those already?
Yes. Now, I think that my main takeaway is with Google Next and what we've seen announcements in the past and just Google Labs in general is a place where they'll just do lots of releases. And a lot of them are silent releases, right? There isn't a lot of attention spent to it. So it's always good to go back and check it out and see what's available. In some cases, the wait list, the reality of the wait list for some of the experimental stuff in the labs is forever. Because I still don't have access to VO2 and day one I signed up for it. So I don't know what their selection process is, but you know, there's also millions upon millions of people. But so like I was saying, there's just so much stuff that comes out and you need to check on it because unless somebody is checking and picking up the news, you may not hear for it for a while. Like the Notebook LM, that was like a sleeper hit,
Yeah.
right? You know, Notebook LM's been around for a while, and then they just did a simple add-on with the podcasting feature, and then suddenly it blew up. So those are the kinds of things that you gotta kind of pay attention to with Google because they have so many different teams working in parallel that it isn't a concerted effort of like, oh, here's our announcement. This is what we're doing. Now they tend to do that with their big conferences. So like their IO, this Google Next, that's where you get the big media push. But other than that, you got to stay on it. Otherwise, you're probably gonna, miss it. And also because it's multiple teams, there is no drive to have consistent releases or scheduling or anything like that. But I'll leave that there. There is a couple of big ones that uh, that we haven't covered so far, and is it time to go into those? Can I?
New news and releases and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Or-
from Google Next, but some of the
Yeah,
big
sure.
pieces. Are we ready to do that? All right, awesome. Okay, so what do we got going on here? If you just check out the blog from Google, they've got like a dozen articles talking about all of the stuff they've released. We mentioned on Wednesday their Ironwood, their new TPU. Um, there is something that we actually talked about on Wednesday that we requested is Gemini and different versions of generative AI from Google in general is now integrated in Workspace. It's the commercial workspace, but it's there, right? You can use VO2 as part of your vids presentation. Brian, you talked about the slide generation, and generating images and video for the slides. So there's just every single app in, I believe, in Workspace has some deeper integration with Gemini.
Yeah, and just to pause on that, the DeepMind CEO, I don't know how to say, Demis Hassabis, sorry, says Google will eventually combine its Gemini and VO AI models. So
Mhm.
we're
Yeah.
we're as we are with OpenAI too, right? So keep going, but I just wanted to bring that.
When?
Well,
When?
Not now.
soon, Beth. It's always soon. Hey, I get it. I don't like it, but I get it. Um, The big ones, I think, are the Vertex AI access, the Google Cloud Platform access to the models. Now, that's not sexy, but what it does mean is developers, organizations, they can get into the nitty-gritty mechanics of it and programmatically use these tools, which I'm sure Google will love because, they're number 3 in the cloud platforms in the world. So, they definitely want more capabilities and features for everyone to access. Um, but this includes, their multimodal tools, generative multimodal tools. So, like, Lyra, which I hadn't really heard about before, but, that's what they're calling their uh, a music generation model. They've got, like, VO2. They have something called Chirp, which I think, we might have covered in passing a while ago, but there wasn't a lot of buzz around that, but that's a voice generative model. So there's Vertex now has access to all of these different generative options, which I think is super exciting. Now, there most of the announcements that I saw or we've been seeing through the hype cycle is usually, here's this one new model, here's this one new thing from these various organizations. But Google has used Google Next to talk about their larger AI based systems. So one of the conversation topics is security. So they announced Google Unified Security, which is AI powered digital security for their systems and how you can integrate that. I want to deep dive into that and see how they're answering for things. They announced Cloud WAN or WAN, and I think that's fascinating from the network side of things. Apparently, it's supposed to give you near instant, responsive forms of networking, but distributed over uh, Okay.
Well,
Yeah. Interesting.
everybody back on screen.
Yeah.
So everybody has the rights to move themselves on the screen. So go ahead and do that. We won't try to move people because we're moving people back and forth.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I'll just continue. I'll let Carl add himself. So where was I before we all went crazy? Cloud WAN, right? Okay, so basically there you go. You can have your you can have this highly responsive network um over, global distances, as opposed to just like remoting in and things like this. It would be more akin to your local area network as opposed to a normal wide area network. So and that's building in AI capabilities and things like that. And then of course the larger story, which was closer to my heart, and that's all the agents. Right? We've got A2A, we've got the ADK, the Agent Developer Kit, um, and native support for MCP. All right. So the big thing that excited me about this is, one, Google already built in native support for MCP, which means they're using it, right? And that's Google using it, that's OpenAI using it, that's Anthropic using it. So if there is still any question of if this is a fly-by-night, protocol that no one is adopting, well, that kind of goes out the window there. And the big takeaways
Oh, sorry, I was
is
on mute. I was just saying, here's the proof, Jimmy, before you move off of that from 2 days ago, April 9th. He's the CEO. This is the guy I was just talking about earlier. And here's your CEO of Google, DeepMind, I'm sorry, and then CEO of Google here. And MCP is a good protocol and is rapidly becoming an open standard for the AI agentic era. We're excited to announce that we're supporting it for our Gemini models and SDK. Looking forward to developing it further with MCP team and others in the industry. To which Sundar said, "Love the feedback. To MCP, it is." There you go. That's it. That's what you need to know.
nice. All right.
It has been.
So I'll give some broad strokes, and I'll let and then I'll stop talking so everyone else can fill in the details. But essentially, we know what MCP is. MCP is the ability for LLMs or AIs to talk to the various tools to get what they want, right? And then, and this is a unified protocol, which allows you to simply build servers for your tools and your feature sets and things like that, and go, "Hey, LLMs, hey, AIs, come and use our stuff here. It's all prepackaged for you. It's nice and easy. Don't worry, we'll maintain it for you. Perfect." Then A2A is a communication protocol to allow all of those agents to talk to each other, right? So they're very complementary with each other. So and then there is the larger agent developer kit that Google has put out so that you can create agents, and they also created an agent space for you to distribute those agents for use. So those are the main components of all of it. And I'm really excited to see if I can get it all working and, get my hands on it and get in there and see if we can maybe create some agents. I think that's a learn with us opportunity down the road. So hopefully we'll get those up and running. So broad strokes, A to A, agents talking to each other. MCP allows agents to talk to tools, and the ADK is the framework that allows you to build agents in Google's environment. Okay, cool.
So there's also, Brian, were you going to talk about that? Because
No,
I got
I
another.
was pulling in Garrett's comment that he was saying he believes MCP is temporary in the big picture. I think there will be a better solution. I don't know what it is, but I don't think this is the end game. I would agree with that probably. Garrett, there's probably some next evolution of this that because of AI is actually even smarter and connects the dots even faster. But we had API for a really long time. So we'll see how it fits in. But go ahead, Beck.
the death of API is premature. We still have API, I suspect.
I wasn't suggesting it was going away.
Oh, no, we had it for a very long time. That's what I was saying. So, one comment on that. If everybody is on MCP, it'll be an easier transition to jump to the next thing because everybody's gonna have a similar, journey for that. But, um, Firebase Studio got lost a little bit because it is like the lovable cursor, replit, bolt, windsurf kind of their offer in that. But if you were really paying attention to the dev conference, you probably weren't super excited about that. You're much more excited about the things that Jimmy just talked about. So it is very interesting that it's not a clone, right? It's their answer to it. And when you do stuff with Google, it's available within it plays nice, should play nice within the Google verse.
Okay, I want to make one quick comment, and then I want to hear from Carl because Carl has been, let's say cynical about Google, generally speaking, and I'm wondering if all of the drop that is happening now with these amazing releases is starting to shift your attentions a little bit more toward Google when you and I and others may have dismissed Google as a go-to in the past. But I wanted to point out one thing that hasn't been mentioned yet, which is Workspace Flows. So MCP is a tool that allows agents and you to automate through the MCP protocol access to external tools. And we've been big fans of a tool called N8N, which is a workflow orchestrator that has models built into it as its sort of core logic manager. And you can select multiple models. You can select Google's models. You can select OpenAI's models. You can select Anthropic, etc. Now, Workspace Flows is a tool that allows people to use that system to integrate naturally with all of the workspace tools like Drive, like Gmail, etc. And instead of having to use N8N to kind of articulate and configure a tool agent that or a tool into the agent that will interact with Google's systems, you can just use Workspace Flows now. So it's related to agents, but it's the actual orchestration, graphical user interface where you can basically drag and drop different elements into a workflow and then process that workflow. And what this means is that businesses who are on the Google Apps platform, in effect, are going to be able to automate processes more efficiently. Okay, so over to
In
Carl,
theory.
please. Yeah, that's right. Oh, I'm sure it's going to work.
Okay, so couple things I wanted to point out. If you actually, there's a lot of our clients, a lot of them are either on the Anthropic APIs or the OpenAI APIs. I have none on the Google API, just because there's no reason for me to switch, and there's no reason for me to switch now too. However, what is fun though is, now you may have to test this because I've tested it from a tokens pricing based perspective. If you actually run, say, one of the models in, and it won't make that much of a difference, but like if you use OpenRouter versus just the direct API, it feels, I think it's a little bit cheaper, because I've noticed a couple of I switched one for a client and just, it's like, because that client does quite a lot of calls, API calls, and the price was a lot lower. I have to check it with a lot of them, and I might switch a couple just for a couple weeks. So if you use the API quite a bit, check the cost and maybe use the same model, but go to OpenRouter and see, because I have a feeling, because I used 4.5 and it was definitely about the same as 4.0, but it shouldn't be because it's pretty expensive to run that API. So I don't know if that's a glitch in OpenRouter, but anyway, just something to chat about. What I did do though is I was a little bit excited about Firebase because there are some projects that I didn't want to actually code in myself. I just wanted to purely try vibe coding. And so that's the one I would probably use for a couple of projects that I'm running on. Um, but other than that, the only thing that I would test Google's on would be calculations because there's a couple automations that I'm running for clients. Nothing too complex, but I want to see the calculations against some of the things that I'm running with. Oh, on the note of N8N, I don't know if anybody noticed that they also added the 2 new modules or nodes of for an MCP server and an MCP client, where before you had to do a lot of different steps to kind of build that out, but now they kind of had it. It's kind of like a halfway point between true. You still have to put in like events. Like if you're using Gmail, it'd be events and then call mail, or like you can't just say use this tool and it'll just go use it automatically, which that's the promise of a full agent. Be like, here's the 5 tools, go use it. You still kind of have to build how to use it, but essentially the I think we're nearly there where it's like, oh, just use an MCP and it just goes. Although I'm not sure about the MCP server or client. I think it's client side or server side. Just how they're built out and the security of that. I'm a little bit concerned.
And just to clarify, that's in the preview. That's 188.
Yes. So I don't, I'm not going to run that with any, I don't run any that kind of complex agent, anything. I don't run that with a client. Just, it's not reliable on a scale of 90, what I call 95% regular use.
I did see that in the latest release notes, and I'm interested in comparing that versus the community node and see
Yes.
see how what kind of features they're building out, because the community node's pretty solid, but
Yeah.
we'll leave that there. That's not a
So in terms of price for use of an API, Google actually has always had a fairly interesting model. You can do things in AI Studio, and that's absolutely free. They train on your stuff. But often in their pricing structure from internal, like you're going to generate this credential and do your stuff, it often has like first 1,000 free, first, whatever kind of period. So even when you're using their stuff, that may be still a beneficial piece for you to experiment with. Their point, of course, is to like get you in the door for free and then have you depend on them. But that is an option to like play with.
Yeah.
I think
for sure.
it isn't that the first 1,000 for free changes any of the problems that we're talking about, right?
One thing that I wanted to point out, I don't know if anyone, I don't think we chatted about the 10 million context window, right? But there was, I can't remember, I was trying to find the chart where it was saying like after the 60, 70, 80%, or after this many million contexts, the reliability of it actually, like the accuracy of it, I think it fell quite a lot. Like, and I think Google was terrible. I think Llama was the worst. I saw that. It was like this even, oh yeah, if it was like 10 million context window, I was like, yeah, but if it can't remember past one, the rest of the not, it is useless. So I think like when we think about context windows, gotta be very careful no matter who releases it. That to me is a good benchmark because it's like, yeah, 10, 20, 50 million context window, but like, can it remember like right in the middle,
Right.
right at the end? Like that is super, super crucial because that means like that's the most important piece. And that's a good benchmark. Like some of the other benchmarks are, I was like, yeah, that's kind of, we all talk about benchmarks, but it's like that one I think is important to really figure out to make sure that the information, because you got people saying, oh, RAG is dead. You don't need to. I was like, Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Like, glad I don't.
If it was, we would know, right? Because like people would be like, "Oh, this remembers everything," and I by the way, I know this is we'll talk about this on a different show, but ChatGPT, just announced improvements to their memory on the Pro account, stuff like that. So certainly people are trying to
Yeah.
continue to fix on it. I wanted to share just a few things really quick. Number one, we haven't talked about VideoFX, but I've had that for quite some time now, and I've said it many times on the show, so I won't take too much time here. But I hope everybody gets it available soon because I do think it is quite literally the best video producer out there. So I use it almost all the time now for the newsletter and for other reasons. I use it as like sort of the moving screen on the conundrums video and stuff like that. And what I love about it is it gives me no, well, it's changed recently. Now you have to kind of say how many you want to use, and there's a VO2 fast mode on there that wasn't there before. So if you want 4 outputs, you have to kind of tell it that. But we can just click on any of these, and I think it's just really, really impressive to see this sort of the detail. You can see this one here, right? This is I forget why I needed this, but like usually one of the four, maybe I'll have to do it a couple of different times. So you have stuff like that. I used this one not too long ago. You can see there's a whole bunch of iterations of Siri. I think I was trying to show it as like people stacking things up in front of the Siri door because like nobody was nobody was using it anymore, and it didn't quite get there. I was trying to do a time lapse, which you kind of see, and they're putting stuff behind the door. No matter what I really tried here, I could never get it to like kind of nail it. But then there's like I've used, like I said, this is for one of the conundrum ones where it was like robots over, watching over a baby at night and stuff like that. This is the McDonald's one, which is still to by far, other than doing some light editing, my absolute favorite because I did it one time and got 4 results and they were all good. So you can see some of the ones that didn't go into the newsletter because I make these into GIFs. But I just love this idea because like McDonald's had a thing about how they were hiring more robots and AI automation and stuff like that. It's a guy coming to get a job, and the robot's like, "Yeah, here's a hiring sign," and then also it's like position filled. So then this guy looking shocked. He's got like the only reason this one didn't work is like the wording and the head inside the head and stuff like that. This is the one I actually did use with some light editing, and I just had to change the wording in Canva a little bit to make it kind of work. And then you can see this one as well. But that was one prompt, one shot, done. This is another one I use for the newsletter, on and on and on. I used this not too long ago when we were talking about the US government kind of not playing in France. And so I had this thing of a robot wearing an American flag saying, "Sorry, I can't play today." And it's walking down the river in Paris, and just sort of a poignant type thing there. So this is elephants that are like hybrid dogs and work like pets. I don't remember why I needed that, but super cool. Looks really cool with the fall foliage and stuff. So on and on and on. I think VideoFX by far is it still can do people do flips. If you ask to do gymnastics, you will get all sorts of weird iterations that aren't super helpful. So there's things that don't work. But I think you can see here pretty quickly that even on first goes on a lot of things, yeah, it's just super, super like fun ways to do it. The other thing I want to mention really quick on the other side is things that we haven't talked about really quick. We don't have time to go into all these, but don't forget, Google owns Waymo. Waymo and all that AI tech that's going into driverless, cars and everything that's going on from way back in 2009, all the way to 2025, and how they're planning to deploy in Washington, D.C. They're in Austin already. I didn't get an opportunity to, but you could actually get a Waymo Uber ride in Austin. So they're there. And then the other thing I wanted to say is that don't forget, Waymo's not the only company, right? Alphabet is a large company. And so we've only had an opportunity to talk about just scratch the surface of AI. But when you think about it, you have Google and search and the things that you're familiar with, then Waymo and Calico and DeepMind, which is massive. This one's interesting to me because it's X, which was formerly Google X, which their website is X.company, which you can't see here, which is also very close to X.AI. So Elon Musk has a company that he's putting everything under, including the former Twitter, called X.AI, but there's still Google X, which is now just X.company, which is their moonshot. And what I find really funny about this one, if you look all the way down here in the corner, it says X, not us, because this is Twitter. So I just think that's really funny. But that's not the only companies we have. Obviously, we have other ones you probably never heard of. But then you have Fitbit and YouTube and Nest and Waze and Looker, which is for data analytics. Then, getting into other companies and stuff. So I just say that all to say, like, let's not forget that Google is Alphabet. Alphabet has many companies underneath it. Some are much more AI-ified than others, like Google DeepMind and their moonshot stuff that they're doing, and obviously embedding. But when you really think about like their Gemini models and you start to connect that and place that across all these different companies, you can see how Google going forward could have, other than Microsoft, has a really, really big competitive advantage. I'm not saying they have the full advantage of implementing and deploying AI across many, many, many different industries and aspects because they're already there. So
And
once
that's the
you do the connecting,
promise and potential and the Achilles heel, right? It's
because why?
because they don't talk across systems. That has been the thing. Often Perplexity, in my experience, Perplexity and ChatGPT give you much better answers on how to do something within a Google product than Google will give you in their stuff. Like it's such a promise. And Andy, like you said, like things are available in Workspace now. They have been available in Workspace for a while. I think what we're saying is they might actually work, right? And be slightly more robust. And like, I want Google to succeed. But no, I've been burnt a bunch of times. You got to show me.
Yeah, I have been a big complainer about the Gemini in Workspace tools, and I've abandoned them in favor of ChatGPT to give me advice on and direction on how to actually we talked about this to do an app script in Sheets. I couldn't get Gemini to do it. It said, "Sorry, I can't help you with that." Well, but I'm hopeful now that this announcement that there are improved Gemini capabilities within the Workspace tools, that now I won't have to do 2 different browser windows and go back and forth. I'll be able to do it all within Sheets.
Yeah, I agree
Oh,
with
by the
that.
way, they also provided a new feature in Sheets, which is automatic data analysis. Okay, so they have an on-demand analyst that you can invoke while you're in Sheets. And I'm not sure what the feature set of that is, but that's going to be interesting for people who have wanted to use Google Sheets and do some kind of processing with it. App scripts have been available if you're willing to code operations within your Sheets like a macro, but now this may make Sheets far more capable, enough more capable that people will start to say, okay, I don't really need to use Excel for this anymore.
Yeah, because Copilot sucks at analyzing anything more complex than like 20 rows and 50 columns or something. Like if you have pivot tables and stuff, that's really where I think like most companies have very complex sheets, usually just because they've been adding to it for decades. And can any of these tools actually do that complex analysis? But you could go to Google Colab, which is not bad place to actually do what happened to Brian. But anyway, that could do that could do like pretty comprehensive calculations. You just have to kind of
Yes.
yeah, right. So it's not a bad place to go to. It just most people don't know about Google Colab and they're like, am I gonna take my data from Excel to move it to Colab? And it's right, and then all that kind of fun stuff with it. So um
And then, of course, the real question, does Carl not like Google or Microsoft more? That will be the ultimate test. Head to head.
who do I hate more? A or B? You know what? It was a slick videos, but I think my disdain is more for Microsoft Copilot, more so because just there's uses for it, but the promise and under delivery is terrible. But more so, it's like, man, you got a lot of businesses that you suckered into just getting massive licenses. And I was like, and I was like, and every single person has come up and like, yeah, it's already good. I was like, I know. Why though? It's the same technology. I don't know what did you do when you got the same tech and you ported it over and it's kind of watered down? Like, what did you do to it? And the only reason is like you Microsoft it. So only
Yeah, but to that point, Microsoft also recently, I think within the last 10 days, announced that they're improving all of the features of Copilot and giving it advanced capabilities. And we haven't seen it and tested it yet, but that's very similar to Google this week announcing that, oh, our workspace Gemini is going to be enhanced. It's going to be more effective than it has been. And I could give you 10 examples of how Gemini within the workspace has completely failed. Even
Okay.
within Sheets, Gemini within Fit. Just yesterday, I asked it to do a table. One of the things that it offers as a very clear option. Here, let me help you build a table out of this data. Well, I had to go through 5 different iterations because it would stop after about 16 rows. Back to this whole issue of it doing a partial completion. And I said, wait, there's 409 rows in this data. And then it came back with this totally improbable and incorrect answer. Oh, I only used 400 of the 409. And I'm like, no, you only used 16 of the 409. But hopefully those things will go away. Wow. It just really, some of the bizarre errors that it provides are I don't understand it.
I just wrote in the chat, come for the tool reviews, stay for the rant. Because, we're gonna get there. So I think that, we're gonna wrap up here. I wanna remind people that the SciFi AI Show has a live coming up today, 1 PM Eastern. No, 1 PM Pacific, 4 PM Eastern. We're talking about the language between the language. Can AI think without words? And can others think without words? Is that a thing? We also have the Conundrum coming out tomorrow. It'll be released on Spotify and in our YouTube channels. If you love what we're doing, please subscribe. Let us know. We also have a community that you can join so we can continue the conversation in the Slack after the show. You can go to dailyAIshowcommunity.com and you'll get right in there, or you'll be at the invite and you can join. And so much more. We've got so much more coming for you for next week, etc. Thanks so much for spending time with us, and we'll see you later.
Aloha.
Okay, everybody hold your breath and pray because I'm going to try to end the show. Here we go.